Start streaming. Hey. It's a good time. It's always a good time when Athletic is playing. Hope you folks are doing well. A little later this morning, had to file the taxes. Taxes got in the way. But that's okay. We are just sitting here waiting for ye old couch about the fire. Although, it's a little different today, so I'm not necessarily sure I'm even going to... Not sure I'm going to wait on CouchBot. Although, really, CouchBot could take off at any second. So, hope you're doing well where you're at. Let's make sure the YouTube is... We've got good audio here. It looks like the signal's coming through, which is always... And we do have audio, which is nice. Nice. Again, a little later today, had some things come up this morning that had to be taken care of. So, I hope you are good where you're at. Let's, it's weird. Things just kind of shift around all the time here. All right. Hey, and CouchBot fired, so even though I wasn't necessarily going to wait on it, it arrived. All right. We'll get this underway then. Greetings one and all, Chris Courtney here, NewPragmatic. It's time for the feedback loop. So good to have you back. We've got submissions from quite a few people today. I'm not going to be able to take a look at Ruby's just yet. That one's locked down. I have sent over requests to have that one opened, but I will circle back to that one offline. But I do have Luigi here, and Abraham's kind of slid in from the side, so we're going to take a look at that. Wouldn't have made it in the original, but we'll make it in this recording. So you know, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is you're peeking in on the live stream. Maybe you've subscribed because of one of the tutorial videos that you've tripped across. I do daily feedback for students. We use this live stream channel to review work. The work is generally generated through the NewPragmatic program. So if you go to newpragmatic.com, you'll see a website, and there's lots of exercises and material over there. Go check that out in case you are finding this all through the YouTube. But if you are interested in mentorship, there's also that side of it. And I want you to listen to my friends about their experience here at NewPragmatic. And obviously that's where in the post edit I'll run the bumper, but I'm going to clip this little section out so we can get right to the work. And if we can find, where did the internet go? Oh, that's the thing. The internet is elusive. We're going to start here with Luigi. And Luigi's gone through the HTML and CSS material, working through the exercises, and now Luigi's taking his hand at writing HTML and CSS for the first time, and he's really trying to replicate an existing site that he already has. And from a structural perspective, we are simply trying to come in and say, okay, how would I create this really simple, straightforward design? How would I create this inside of CodePen? So first thing we want to look at, Luigi, is how are you structuring this? Like right now, I know you don't have any CSS because like you just want to focus on the HTML, and that's great. You were worried about having broken tags, and the first thing I'll point out is like you've got to close this. This is a div. I'm not even getting into why you're using a div here. It's just like that was a broken tag. Now, typically speaking, you know, you don't have to do this in CodePen, but this is where I would use a body tag. All right, and I would use a body tag at the beginning and at the end. So this is body, and again, you don't have to do that in CodePen, so that's one reason why it doesn't even pay attention to that. But this allows you to close it, and you can see that, okay, so now when I close it, it says I have an opening and closing tag. That's one really neat, handy thing to have. Then you've got navigation here. And navigation makes enough sense, but that's not the semantic tag that we typically use. If we go over here to look at MDN and look at their docs for semantic tags, you'll see that the tag is actually called nav. So nav is the navigation section element. So typically we would write nav here. So what we'll do is we'll change that to nav instead of navigation. But I did pick up what you were doing. The other thing that's nice is in CodePen, if you change a related tag, it will automatically change the other piece for you. So that's why nav and nav is fixed. Okay, so next you've got this very interesting situation here where you've got like an H4 wrapping a class of links, but there is no closing H4. Like here, okay, we've got a nav. The H3 here is just the H3. This H4, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's like, I don't know what this is. Now, we can talk about what you were attempting to do there, but you've already got a container that can control that. And if we look back at your other site, this basically is an unordered list that some CSS has pushed to the side. So all we really need here is the UL. So I'm gonna, if you want to have this class of links, and again, you don't have any CSS written, so I'm not really sure what you're going to assign there. But as far as like the actual having a class associated with something, the UL is enough. You don't need another div or anything like that. So now your nav closes up. It's clean as a whistle. No problem there. And that nav, if we said, and I'm just going to write some code so we can see it. Nav, if we say background color red, red, you can see where that nav is at. That nav stretches across the top. The one thing you want to remember is when you're writing this in CSS and you're putting this together like in the real project, you're going to want to include a reset. And by including it here in CodePen, you see what happens. It like drags all that extra padding, all that extra sizing and whatnot. It gets rid of all of that. Okay, so that's just something I wanted to point out. You don't necessarily have to have it, but I think it's a good thing to remember to apply. All right, so from here, we've got an H1, which makes enough sense. The H1 is high on Luigi, just goes across the top, right? And then you have a series of containers, and some of these have classes, some of these do not. I'm just closing them right now just to see if we're missing, do we have any stray tags? And it looks like we do have one stray tag. We have an extra div tag down here. Because when I closed all the other ones, this one was left over. It's kind of a widow, all right? So I'm going to delete that one. You don't necessarily need it. What I would suggest doing, though, is, and this is funny because, I said, oh, you don't need that. You could come in here and create a section. And this section would just be for work. And this is basically going to contain all of the shapes that you have. So you have this, contain, and then you have fresh market, and then you have all your other units. And what I want to do here is I just want to kind of add some structure to this. I want to say section, and then I'm going to say section div, and I'm going to say width equals 100%. Stay with me for a second. Width, height equals 200 pixels, and I'm only giving you that height to hold some space. And now I'm going to say background color yellow. All right, and again, this is just to kind of give us some structure. So now each of those units that you created has a background color, a height, and a width. I'm going to actually control that by declaring on section that the display should be grid. All right, and then I'm going to give it a grid gap of 1 rem, and we should begin to see like some space between these items. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 containers of work that you're going to show, right? This is where we would say grid template columns, and you have a 2-column design, right? So this is where you would say 1FR, 1FR. And that should create this in a grid structure. Now, something that's interesting here is you have this padding to the side. right? It doesn't. Nothing ever quite goes to the side. There's a couple of different ways that you could do that. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to put that on body, and I'm just going to say, all right, so body padding 0 to the top and bottom, and I'm going to say 5 viewport width to the side. And that's going to bring everything in, okay? And this goes back to that concept of, all right, I want to apply structure to the highest level element that I can. Let's say that you did not want to apply it to body, okay? Let's say that for whatever reason, and I'm not here to make up reasons, but for whatever reason, you wanted it to only apply to the items underneath nav, all right? So, and there's a complete, I can totally see why you might want to do that. So div, I gotta close this one down here. Div class, this is where we would probably create a container, all right? And instead of saying this is on body, I'm now just going to say this is dot container. Now nav gets to go to the edge, but the container holds those projects to an interior space. And you could even do this, which I often see, nav class equals container, and in this I may have to yeah. So by putting the container class on the nav itself, I can pull that other content in line without adding a div, because I want that background color to go edge to edge. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through some of that. You'll probably stop this and rewind it 500,000 times to see exactly what's going on here. But that's the basic structure. As you're going through, I would encourage you to, close down these tabs to see, to see exactly where things are. This is the perfect usage of a class, though. I want this spacing to be applied a couple of different places. So that's something to keep in mind. This div is wrapping everything. It's wrapping your H1. It's wrapping the section. It's wrapping those container units. One thing I typically do is I typically remove that, and I'll place the unit outside the you've got a note here that tells you what that item is. I tend to place those outside, so even if I have this closed, I can see what it is. So that's just one little thing that I do that's a little different from the way you have it structured, because I have a habit where I just close all of these as I go, because I think it becomes very hard to actually see the work that I'm doing when I have them all open. But just a couple of thoughts there as you're moving forward. Yes, there's a lot. This is very like 70s McDonald's color scheme right now. But this is not what I would hope your portfolio would look like. But structurally, this is pretty close to what's going on over here. Obviously, you're going to add some margin here, and you're going to blow this up in size. But you get the general idea. I would like to see you execute further on this now that we've kind of talked through exactly what's happening here in the CSS. Like, it's really simple CSS, and that's the thing that a lot of people miss on this. Like, there's no reason to pay Squarespace for this. There's just no reason to do it. There's nothing Squarespace is really doing for you, and really it comes down to, if you can write the HTML, the CSS is simple. Okay. All right. So let's move over here to Abraham. So Abraham, you've got your portfolio and you've been updating it. And again, love the AF logo. It looks like it's 2 triangles, but when you really look at it, it's an AF. I always thought that was been pretty sharp. Illustration here, I recognize where those are coming from. As you come through, you got patient caregiver interaction, and then you've got patient details at Almond startup. I don't think it's, it's kind of interesting. Almond startup. Like, do I have to identify that it's a startup? maybe I'm worried that people are going to think that it's a class project. I don't think it looks like a class project. I think you're deep enough there. I would like to see, like, a lot of times when I see an illustration there, I think, oh, this is research work. So I think, like, getting another visual here would be helpful. One thing to remember is when I go in from this, I don't necessarily remember what I was looking at before. So you're right now, this overview requires me to read through. I want to be reminded before I get into the overview, like, what is this? Almond remote patient monitoring, and this startup needed a way to, like, this is a slight tweak, but I want to introduce the product. Right now you're going to overview, kind of assuming that they know what it is. One thing I noticed as we go through is I see a lot of relatively finished work. Yes, I would like to break out your role so it kind of stands out a little bit. I'd like to link to Scott here so that they could go see that there was somebody else. I want to highlight that you weren't working alone on this, because as a young designer, like, the thing that I think always weighs against is, oh, you're just a boot camp kid. And the problem there is, like, you've done collaboration in a real world position that you were getting paid for. So, like, this needs to elevate beyond boot camp. You need to show those interconnections with other people. So this is an early stage startup. If this is on Crunchbase or anything, I would link to it. I don't know that it is. I haven't looked for it. I like seeing the old dashboard. I might come through and identify, like, the key areas where there was an issue, and then add the notation down below. Here it says sketching and wireframing, and I don't see any sketching or wireframing. So I'm a little confused by this. Like when I see sketching and wireframing, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to see some artifacts that lead up to the final design, and all I see is kind of like this redesigned card. I need to see the iterative steps. That what were the other options? Like, show me more than just the final, because I don't think that you just, like, clicked your heels together and got there. I think you had to think about, okay, where is this really going? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I think that it's completely fine if you didn't, like, just immediately, like, close your eyes and magically find the right answer. I think it's fine. My goal here, though, is that you are showing me all the iterations, because that means that you iterated on it, and iteration is the core of product design. And I'm not seeing the iteration right now. I am seeing the tracking. This seems like it doesn't need to be an image. This is also going to be something that shrinks down horribly for mobile. So, and it's like too big for desktop, too small for mobile. I would just recreate this in HTML. Just use CSS Grid and, like, do 4 columns, and maybe this one's really, really light. But again, just throw it in the CSS Grid, or even Flexbox. Patient card flow, requirements met. This might be helpful to see side by side. I can't. I'm not getting so I see patient care, and this is still patient care. There's so much here, I'm not really sure, and I can't get it all on the screen at once either. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be focused on. Okay, priority. So wait, let's see here. Clicking on the patient card simultaneously opens the file and moves it to Contact Priority tab and In Progress. Okay, Contact Priority and In Progress. I would like highlight this. And now we're in progress. Okay, so here it is. Okay, well, okay, it's missing up here, but now it's in progress. So this is the in progress view. Yeah, I think just something to elevate that. I don't know if you want to annotate this visual or if you want to show them side by side, but something so that we can kind of, like, see the scope of this. Additionally, there's one other thing I might invite you to do, is like use a GIF here. Instead of just showing the two visuals, show it slightly smaller, but like show the interaction so we see what happens when this is happening. You can record your screen. There's actually something called Flipbook. That's a tool built into. It's a Figma plugin. It's not really built into Figma, but it's called Flipbook. Actually, might be beneficial for you. Flipbook, Figma. Nope. Nope. Here we go. Flipbook Animator. Selects the frames, then animates. They show it with a drawing. You can use it with this. It's just taking two frames and animating them together. So think about doing that for something like this. Okay. But again, I want to see the iterations, and that's the piece. I looked at your other one, and it's the same thing. It's like I don't see the iterations. This is again. This looks exactly the same as the last one, and except I know that it is instead of looking at the patient, instead of looking at the like overview, this is very much a patient detail, and like you're showing me some data display, which is really nice. Here's the old version of that. But again, I'm not seeing the sketching. I don't see the iteration. I get a sense of it, and this is really nice. And this is like the perfect thing that I would GIF. I would like GIF, slow static change. Highlight that. Highlight dynamic content. Highlight action items. And then for the fourth view, I would show this, like doot doot doot, boom, this thing. So I think that there's some work that can be done here, and to illustrate what's really going on, but I don't think right now I'm seeing it because the visuals are so big and there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's not quite annotated. So I want to see that, plus I want to see the iterations. All right, you do those two things, winner chicken dinner. But without those two things, I'm kind of swimming around and I'm not really sure. And I don't know, is this real? Is it not? Like link to something that says almond was real. Get me in, link me to Scott here so I can see who that was, and let's go from there. Okay. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. Hope it was helpful for you. It certainly was helpful for me. Ruby, I'm going to check out your stuff offline. Luigi, thank you so much for submitting your work. I hope that today's restructuring of that file, again, you were making some right moves, and I think you were like 2-3 tags off, okay? Not a big deal. And then Abraham, show us those iterations. Show us those iterations, and consider taking the visuals you have and stacking them and putting them together in such a way that we see it in motion. All right? All right, folks, without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.